Subscribe for the latest in boxing, guys, and raw boxing opinions. So I'm going to be quoting Mr. Tyson Fury. I want this to be one of the greatest comebacks in boxing history, similar to George Foreman, Muhammad Ali, and the other great comeback fighters. If I can win this belt, they'll put me amongst the greats of the comebacks. All the controversy and stuff I've been through adds to the flavor. I know for a fact, deep down in my soul, it's written in the stars for me to come back and wipe you out in style in America. And everyone is going to say, how did he do that? And I'm going to say, I told you so. I'm back. I'm beating you 1,000,000%. I have no doubts. Even after all the time off, you cannot beat me. I know deep in my heart, you can't beat me. I know no one can. I'll retire unbeaten, heavyweight champion of the world like Rocky Marciano, the second man to do it in history. You can't beat me, and 10 more like you can't beat me. It will forever be my time until I retire, because I speak it, I believe it, I receive it. Speak it, believe it, receive it. Speak it, believe it, receive it. So that is right there what Tyson Fury, the former unified heavyweight champion of the world, said in one of his interviews. And you see, Tyson Fury is a very confident man, right? He's a very confident man who believes that no heavyweight could beat him. You know, he's been saying for several years that all these heavyweights are bums and nobody could beat him. Nobody could beat him. He's been, you know, he said it to Klitschko before he fought Klitschko. He was saying that Klitschko was a stiff European fighter. He was a robot. He kept calling him stiff. He was a stiff robot. Klitschko was afraid of him. Klitschko couldn't beat him. And he was saying that this was an easy fight for him, Tyson Fury. And then he goes in there and he schools Vladimir Klitschko. Back then, he was also saying, he was calling Deontay Wilder a bum. You know, he's called Anthony Joshua a weightlifter, right? He says that he believes that this is going to be a great comeback when he beats Wilder, and he believes that nobody could beat him. He believes he will retire as the champion, whether it's the WBC champion or the undisputed champion. And then he says that he's going to basically do what Rocky Marciano did, retire undefeated. The thing is, Rocky Marciano was in a very weak division. You know, this guy was around during the late 40s, late 50s, and if you look at the division, the heavyweight division at that particular time, it was a very weak division. Very weak division. I mean, you had guys like ancient Archie Moore. You know, Archie Moore was past his prime at that point. You had guys like, man, it's been a while. I used to do a lot of research of the 1940s, 1950s heavyweights. But one thing you had past his prime, you know, shot to bits. What's his name? Joe Louis. You had a lot of fighters, and none of them were, you know, all-time great heavyweights. So I think that Rocky Marciano was fighting. Oh no, Jersey Joe Walcott. I think it's been a while since I've seen this, but if I recall, Jersey Joe Walcott was outboxing and beating Rocky Marciano before he got caught with a punch that knocked him out cold. So Rocky Marciano was a guy that you could knock out. I mean, that you could outbox, because I remember it was either against Jersey Joe Walcott or somebody that I was watching the fight, and he was beating Rocky Marciano, and then he got caught with a punch that knocked him out. So Rocky Marciano was a guy that you could outbox. Like I said, when it comes to Rocky Marciano, he was unbeaten, but he was in a very weak division, right? His era was a very weak division. It was a very weak era, I should say. This era, I believe, is much stronger than the 1950s, 40s, a group of heavyweights. Again, look at the heavyweights during the 1940s, 50s. That was a weak division. You know, a strong division or a strong era in the heavyweights division was probably the 70s, the 90s, right? I think heavyweights in the 90s and heavyweights in the 70s were much better quality heavyweights than they were in the 1940s and 1950s. That's what I personally think. And I think this is a strong group of heavyweights that we have now. And I think that the quality of heavyweights these days are much better than, you know, the quality of heavyweights that were during the 1980s when Mike Tyson was around, and during the 1950s when Rocky Marciano was around. I think it's going to be much more difficult for Tyson Fury to stay unbeaten in this current generation of or this current era of heavyweights. I think it's going to be more difficult for him to stay unbeaten the way Rocky Marciano did, because this is a lot more. I think it's a lot more competitive, and the guys here are, I just think they're better heavyweights than the guys in the 1950s. And I personally think that he's going to lose to either Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua. I personally believe that he's going to win some rounds against Deontay Wilder. I think Deontay Wilder is very outboxable. You could outbox Deontay Wilder, and I think you're going to see Tyson Fury outbox Deontay Wilder for some rounds. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if it's round 5 and I got Tyson Fury up ahead. But I think he will, because of the fact that he was in such a long layoff, he's going to eventually get caught with something. He's not going to see a punch coming. Wilder's a very fast heavyweight. He's very fast with his right hand. I think he's much faster than Tyson Fury. And Wilder is a very unpredictable style, right? Vladimir Klitschko was very predictable. Vladimir Klitschko is a better talent than Wilder, but he's way more predictable than Wilder, because, you knew what he was going to do. Jab, jab, like David Haye once said, jab, jab, grab. You knew that you had to be, if you're standing in front of him, he's going to throw a jab in your face. So he was so much predictable. Like Tyson Fury labeled him, he was a robot. And it was easy. And Tyson Fury was on the back foot, so he knew, okay, as long as I just keep moving, as long as I keep playing the counterpuncher and just stay away from Vladimir Klitschko, I could do this all night. When it comes to Deontay Wilder, I think he's more unpredictable. Right, because he's a guy that out of nowhere he could explode. Right, you could be outboxing him, and out of nowhere he'd throw a punch out of left field. And a lot of times those punches that you don't see, those are the punches that hurt you the most, right? So I think that's what's gonna happen. I wouldn't be shocked if he's winning the fight and then he gets caught with something crazy than Wilder, because Wilder's, unlike Vladimir Klitschko, I think Wilder has more of a dog in him. Vladimir Klitschko was too afraid to fight on the inside against Tyson Fury. I think Deontay Wilder is more of a risk taker. Like, even if he knows he's going to get hit with something like a counter, he is willing to take the risks a little bit more than Vladimir Klitschko. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think maybe it's going to be round 5, round 6, and maybe Wilder will see that he's behind on the scorecards, and he's going to think to himself, I got to go for broke. I got to land my right hand on Fury. And he's going to be, jumping in, throwing these crazy right hands, and from these odd angles, right? Because he fights very odd at Deontay Wilder, and I think eventually one of those right hands will catch Tyson Fury. And the question is, what happens if it lands flush on Tyson Fury? Does it hurt him? Does it drop him? We already know what happens when Wilder hurts a guy. Whenever Wilder hurts an opponent, he goes after them like crazy. You never see Wilder hurt an opponent and then, leave them off the hook, right? Don't attack them. No, he always goes crazy. So if Wilder manages to hurt Fury, the question will be, is Fury going to be able to survive the attack that comes afterwards? Because the attack will be Wilder going crazy after him. Fury's going to have to survive that, hold on to Deontay Wilder, or slip and slide. That's the question. If he's able to survive that, once he gets hurt, then yeah, maybe this fight could go the distance. But if he's not able to survive that, then he's going to get knocked out, in my opinion. So I just don't see him staying undefeated. I don't think a fighter could be undisciplined and stay undefeated. That's just my personal belief. I don't think fighters who balloon up in weight in between fights can ever stay undefeated. If you look at the history of boxers, they can't stay undefeated. He says he wants to make comebacks like the great comebacks like Muhammad Ali, George Foreman. Yeah, but these guys also lost, right? Ali came back and he beat George Foreman, and he became heavyweight champion of the world again. But he lost to Joe Frazier. He lost to Joe Frazier in his first comeback. When his first championship title fight in his comeback, when he fought Joe Frazier, he got beat up against Joe Frazier, right? Joe Frazier gave him a hellacious beating. It took him several years just to win that belt, right? When he finally became champion again against George Foreman, that was like 4 years, yeah, because he came back in 1970, right, after a 3-year hiatus, right, and he didn't win the belt until 1974 against George Foreman in Africa. Again, he attempted to win a belt in 1971 against Joe Frazier, and he got beat up. Same thing with George Foreman. George Foreman, remember, he retired in 1977, and he took a 10-year hiatus. He came back in 1987, and he did not win a belt until 1994 against Michael Moore. After getting beat up for 10 rounds, he catches Michael Moore with a punch, and he knocks him out, right? Prior to that, he had attempted to fight to win a championship belt when he fought Evander Holyfield in 1991 for the undisputed titles. And he got beat up and lost every single round against Evander Holyfield. It wasn't easy for him. Right? It took him several years just to finally win a belt again. And again, even when he won the belt, he was getting his ass whooped for the first 10 rounds. That was, Michael Moore was schooling him. So like I'm saying, these guys made their comebacks, but it wasn't easy for them. It wasn't easy for Ali. He lost, and it wasn't easy for George Foreman. And I believe this is the same case for Tyson Fury. I think he can be a champion again, but I don't think it's going to be easy for him, and I see him losing eventually. If it's not Wilder, it's Joshua, and if it's not Joshua, it's going to be somebody. Somebody will beat Tyson Fury. That's just my personal opinion. Anyway, guys, that's all I have to say. If you watched the video from start to finish, as always, much appreciated. And yeah, subscribe for the latest in boxing, guys, and raw boxing opinions. Thanks for watching.